About the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday morning edition, Darryn Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Darryn Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Monster show today. Hope everybody's doing well. We got a lot to get into and not a lot of time. We're going to open Nate Oats. Listen, the Charles Bediako thing has gone on long enough, but we do have one final story involving Bediako. Legendary coach calling out Nate Oats. We'll discuss that. How about this? Straight from the news desk within the last hour, Jay Williams saying college basketball better than the NBA. You don't have to sell me. We'll talk about more Darryn Peterson, as apparently now schools are afraid to recruit 5-stars because of him. Blame Darryn Peterson, not the 5-star mantra. We'll talk a little bit about Mick Cronin going crazy, Jim Boeheim and Syracuse, some interesting developments there. And, by the way, then we'll start to preview a monster weekend in the world of college basketball, headlined by the showdown for first place between the Florida Gators and Kentucky Wildcats. And speaking of big games this weekend, top 10 matchup in Ames, Iowa, Kansas and Iowa State. Bring it up because Bryson Tiller, Kansas star, will join the show here to wrap. Really excited to welcome in Bryson Tiller to the show. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you're subscribed. Darryn Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We really do appreciate your support of the show. Also, make sure if you are not subscribed, by the way, we just passed 70,000 subscribers on, Wednesday night. So thank you for your support. 70,000 subscribers. And here's the great part. We are just getting started. Speaking of getting started, you know who we're getting started with? Our friends, the hotel and casino partners of the Darryn Torres Pod. Of course, I got to thank Circa and Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so Circa, listen, if you've been to Vegas, you know that's Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. There is no place better to watch games than Circa. But you know what else I know? Is that not all of you can make it to Vegas. And so if you cannot make it to Vegas, there is only one place on the East Coast to watch games, and that is the new Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs at the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, so all of the same great hospitality, all of the same great things that we love about Circa in Vegas have come to the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. About 30 to 40 minutes from Nashville, about 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And listen, it's that time of year, right? You need a place to watch games. You need a place to hang out. You need a place to get ready for March Madness. You need to check out the brand new Circa Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. I've mentioned it a few times. Producer Matt and I will be at the Mint here in the next couple weeks, kind of doing some shows in the lead up to the NCAA tournament. So make sure to come meet us, come hang out with us. We'll get you more details as we get closer. Thank you to Circa Sportsbook and the Circa Casino. Thank you to the new Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs in beautiful Franklin, Kentucky. With that said, it is a busy Thursday in the world of sports. There is no more time to waste. So, folks, let's do it. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen. All right, so this Charles Bediako thing, we've gone on long enough with it. It's been about a 3 to 4 week story at this point, and I only bring it up because, do I dare say it? There's a certain amount. There's a certain how do I say this appropriately? There are some files that are being investigated currently in the bigger picture real world. It feels like every time you turn on the news, they're talking about said files. I'm not trying to get political. Why do I bring it up? This Bediako thing is the same thing. It's like at a certain point, we just got to Well, with the Bediako thing, we got to move on, okay? So I bring it up because this week it feels like we have finally gotten some closure to Charles Bediako, a local judge. By the way, that was a random tangent. I don't even know where I was trying to go with that. Sorry, it's Thursday. It's the last show of the week. Forgive me. We got a big weekend ahead, okay? Anyway, the Charles Bediako thing, it has come full course. By now, everybody knows my personal take on the Charles Bediako situation. We don't need to relitigate it. Nobody cares at this point. But a local judge did say, listen, enough is enough. You know, you had your chance to play college basketball. You left. Everybody knew the rules. Everybody knew the circumstances. And so the local judge says you can't play. Greg Sankey says he is not in favor of it. And we found out earlier this week that for all intents and purposes, the Charles Bediako saga is complete. Well, I bring it up because earlier in the week, certainly a high-profile, legendary former coach had plenty to say about the situation. But before we get to what the legendary coach said, I first want to play what Nate Oats said as the saga appears to have come to an end. Now, listen, I've said it a million times. I like Nate Oats. I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball. I don't think he handled this particular thing great. But I also bring it up because as the thing went final, he's calling out players on other teams, and this guy's from this league. It's not the same. It's not equivalent. By the way, Nate Oats said something to the effect of people who are talking about this need to educate themselves. I actually think it's the exact opposite. I think people are too educated on it. I think Nate Oats thought he was going to pull a fast one on everybody. Oh, this is no different than a 21-year-old European from Latvia coming over. Actually, it's a lot different. Anyway, I bring it up. The Bediako saga comes to an end. Here was Nate Oats in the lead up to Wednesday night's game.
Yeah, I realize it hasn't been 24 hours yet since the Bediako ruling, but just in your mind, do you think it was worth it bringing him in for those 5 games?
100%. Like, there was an opportunity to help one of our former players out. He was within his 5-year window. He's trying to get his degree. And here's the thing, too. My job as a head coach is to do the right thing by our guys, and Charles is one of our guys, and that was the right thing to do by one of our guys. Like I've said before, this is not some mercenary deal. A 23-year-old coming in for a semester from that nobody knows, renting them for a semester or something. So, he was deemed legally eligible to play. We're going to absolutely support him.
That was Nate Oats kind of putting a bow on the Charles Bediako thing. I thought it was interesting, by the way. He took a little dig on the way out. For people who do not know the reference on the back end where he said he's not some 23-year-old coming in for a semester, Oklahoma actually did bring in a European player who was within the 5-year window for 1 semester. Listen, like James, like all this stuff, wasn't a great look. It doesn't change the fact, though, necessarily that it is not equivalent to Charles Bediako. And it doesn't change the fact that I think it closes a pretty, dark chapter is a little bit hyperbolic. I'm not saying that. Charles Bediako is a human being. I think he was in the wrong, but it doesn't make him a terrible person, whatever. But I only bring it up because Nate Oats says I'd do it 100 times over in defense of my player. Well, that certainly caught the attention of one legendary head coach who had a lot to say about the situation, now working for TNT. You gotta hear Bruce Pearl's response to Nate Oats saying he would do it 100 times out of 100 to help Charles Bediako. Here is Bruce Pearl on TNT.
Then they make a decision. Nate said he'd play him 100 times again. What it tells me is that Nate really doesn't care about the SEC. He doesn't care about the NCAA. And it's fine. You're going to care about your student athletes. That's fine. But you're a member of this conference, and you're a member of the NCAA. What about the rest of the team? What about the rest of the players? Why should those 5 teams have had to play against an ineligible player? And I think it was selfish, and I think it was wrong.
Bruce Pearl coming in hot on the Charles Bediako Nate Oats saga. And listen, let me say this. I want to get into Bruce Pearl's comments. Before I do, let me do the caveat that we always have to do in this situation. Yes, I understand that Bruce Pearl is the former Auburn head coach. Yes, I understand that Bruce Pearl, of course, had his own issues with the NCAA. I'm not saying that he's a perfect person, just like I'm not a perfect person, just like you're not a perfect person, whatever. But at the end of the day, here is how I view what Bruce Pearl said. Bruce Pearl, in my opinion, is no longer a college basketball coach. Not even in my opinion. He's just not a college basketball coach. He is paid by TNT, by Turner, to give opinions on what is going on in the world of college basketball. And if we're going to sit there and say that, we want our people on TV to have strong opinions, because what is the number one complaint about people in the media? Oh, they never say anything. They don't take a side. They're too in bed with the coaches. I mean, that's an argument about Dick Vitale, Seth Greenberg, whoever. Oh, my goodness, they always defend the coaches no matter what. Well, if you want your analysts to provide real analysis, you have to allow them to do it. And so I love what Bruce Pearl said. Let's dive in, because I got to say it. I think he's 100% right. First of all, as far as what he said, as a matter of fact, Matt, one more time, because I actually want to hear it myself just so I can fully process what he said. Let's play the Bruce Pearl sound one more time. I'm not trying to vamp here. I want to hear it one more time.
Then they make a decision. Nate said he'd play him 100 times again. What it tells me is that Nate really doesn't care about the SEC. He doesn't care about the NCAA. And it's fine. You're going to care about your student athletes. That's fine. But you're a member of this conference, and you're a member of the NCAA. What about the rest of the team? What about the rest of the players? Why should those 5 teams have had to play against an ineligible player? And I think it was selfish, and I think it was wrong.
So I actually love it, and there's a few reasons why. First of all, I'll say this. So one, I agree 100% with Bruce Pearl, and I think to me, this was always the surprising thing about the Charles Bediako situation. Listen, coaches are coaches, right? They're trying to win games. They're trying to do what's in the best interest of their team, and they're always looking for an edge no matter how it is in recruiting, right? Look at every situation in coaching. You have guys that want kids to reclassify and come early. You want older players. You want red shirts. You want JUCO. You're always trying to find a way to put together the most talented roster in college basketball. What was surprising to me was 2 things. One, I was stunned that Alabama just let it happen, right? And I think if there's anyone who deserves criticism in this situation, it's not even necessarily Nate Oats. It's Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama. Transparently, I like Greg Byrne. I've met him a few times. He said some nice things about me. But I got to call a spade, and I got to say, what are you doing, Greg Byrne? Because this notion, one, that Charles Bediako was the same as all of these other situations, he was not. We've talked about it a million times. He went through the draft process. He declared for the draft. He stayed in the draft. He signed multiple NBA contracts. That's not like a 21-year-old coming from Latvia or a 19-year-old from Bulgaria or a 23-year-old from Sweden. It is not the same. I'm sorry, okay? So Greg Byrne knew what he was getting into, and I was disappointed that Greg Byrne didn't have the backbone to stand up to his coach and say, listen, we want to win, but it isn't win at all costs. And that was the other frustrating thing. Like, I saw a lot of people in the media space. Well, don't blame Nate Oats, blame the system. He has to win games, and if he doesn't win games, he's going to get fired. Whoa, wait a second now. Nate Oats is going to get fired, really? Because first of all, I think he'd be owed about $30 million if he gets fired. 2, he's quite literally the greatest coach in Alabama basketball history. Nate Oats ain't getting fired anytime soon. He can survive a 20-12 year because he missed out a few guys in the portal and whatever. He didn't have to stoop this low. It made him look bad. And I'll be honest, listen, I don't want to say it made the whole SEC look bad. I don't think it reflects poorly on Rick Barnes. I don't think it reflects poorly on John Calipari. I don't think it reflects poorly on Stephen Pearl. But at the same time, it did make a lot of people look bad. And that's the other thing, too. I'm surprised Greg Sankey didn't step in sooner. Now, I will tell you, I have a little bit of insight into the SEC league office's thinking in this process. One, I do think that once the James Najee thing happened, they kind of threw their hands up and said, well, if that guy's eligible, why isn't everybody eligible? So I think they kind of sat there and said, let's see how this all plays out. But I also think ultimately they sat there and said, you know what? One, is the NCAA going to do anything? And I think that's what took Greg Sankey so long to actually make a statement on this topic. Was I think he was sitting there wondering, like, is anybody actually going to step up and do something about this? Is somebody going to step up and say something? Is somebody going to step up and get in the way, or do I ultimately have to step up? But I do think it was Greg Sankey's responsibility. I do think he should have done something sooner. I was thinking about this, right? Is that Greg Sankey's job is to not do what's best for Alabama, despite what a lot of teams in that league think. It's to do what's best for the SEC. And so I thought the point by Bruce Pearl was really interesting. Was like, what about Tennessee? What about Texas A&M? What about Auburn? I mean, Auburn, they're headed towards the bubble. What if that one loss is the difference between them getting in and them not getting in? Bediako played against A&M. A&M is now 2 games back of the SEC lead. What if that's the difference between them winning the SEC regular season championship? And so I only bring it up because if anybody, I blame Greg Sankey as well. Why did he not step in sooner? Why did he not say something? Because his only job is to protect the best interests of the SEC as a whole, right? It's no different than Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell, his only job is to keep things kosher between the 32 NFL owners, and that's Greg Sankey's job. And so I was surprised that he didn't get involved either. So this has been a bad look overall. I thought it was interesting. Bediako, first game without him on Wednesday night. You know, Nate Oats did this big rant about, you know, Chris Beard wrote a handwritten note to Bediako, and you know, he told his student section, don't boo them, and blah, blah, blah. First of all, Chris Beard's a great basketball coach. I don't know that that's the guy that you necessarily want on your side in moral situations. Another conversation for another day. Don't mean to be taking digs at Chris Beard. But I just, you know, I don't really know what else there is to say on this topic. I think we're officially done with it. But I give Bruce Pearl credit, man. He knows the backlash that he's going to get as the former Auburn head coach saying something about this topic. But what he said isn't wrong. What about the SEC? What about, you know, they used to say in the Big Ten there was a gentleman's agreement about who you could recruit and when you could recruit. And once a guy verbally committed, you never messed with him. And it's kind of a gentleman's agreement here is, you know, listen, Nate Oats, you're opening up a whole new can of worms. What happens if the next guy takes it to, anyway, Bediako, it appears is done. But I had to get to that Bruce Pearl sound because it was absolutely unbelievable. All right, so what we're going to do. First segment went a little bit long. We got a bunch of quick hitters from Tuesday or Wednesday, I should say. Jay Williams apparently just said on First Take that college basketball is better than the NBA. We'll talk about that. Are people going to stop recruiting freshmen because of Darryn Peterson? Then we got to get to this weekend ahead. Awesome weekend highlighted by Kentucky versus Florida. Quick break. Come back, talk it all. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com. CauleyPuffs.com. And you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out. 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CauleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cauley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. We're going to get to Jay Williams in a second. Before we do, a couple comments from the chat. First of all, Mike Rose taking a dig at producer Matt's Auburn Tigers, saying Pearl is hardly a legendary coach. Being a legend is pretty cheap nowadays, I guess. I mean, Bruce Pearl hype. You can argue, I don't know if I would, that Bruce Pearl is the greatest coach in 2 different SEC programs' history. He's certainly the greatest coach at Auburn, 2 Final Fours. I think you can argue he's the best coach in Tennessee history. I would say Rick Barnes has probably surpassed him. By the way, won a national championship at Southern Indiana. When you are the best coach in the history of, at minimum, 2 programs, maybe 3, and I would argue maybe even 4. I don't know enough about the history of UW Milwaukee, where he took him to the Sweet 16. He's a legend. You might not like him, but he's a legend. Here you go here. Hunter in the Ozarks says, Oats always seems to be on the wrong side of legality, always on the side of sketchy. There's no doubt. And I like Nate Oats, but he has certainly pushed some boundaries, and I think it's changed the perception of him among people in basketball. He used to just be a great coach, maybe the greatest coach in Alabama history. Now he hasn't looked so good. Hunter in the Ozarks says Beard is pen pals with Baidiaco. I like that. Let's see here. I love this. First of all, Uncle Bias Brim says good morning. Nobody says March Pope. Icon Batch to DJ says love Torres. Appreciate your support. And Hunter in the Ozark says, can anyone stop the Big Pig recruiting invasion? Jordan Smith Jr. will have to come back on Friday to react to that, because I think he is officially about to be an Arkansas Razorback. We'll get to Jay Williams in just a second and some news and notes from college hoops before we preview the Saturday slate. Before we do, though, I got to thank our friends and the ticketing partners of the Aaron Torres pod. I got to thank SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so listen. It's that time of year. You want to get to games, college hoops. Maybe you're a Kentucky fan that wants to go to the O-Dome this weekend. Maybe you're an Arkansas fan that wants to see Bruce Pearl's formerly Auburn Tigers, he's no longer the head coach there, come to Bud Walton Arena this weekend. Well, I bring it up because if you need tickets to any game or a concert or a show or the SEC tournament or the Big Ten tournament or the whatever, you need to go to SeatGeek. It's America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. What I love about SeatGeek, 2 things. 1, every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10 with a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means stay away. But what I really love about SeatGeek is that they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres, you get $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres, gets you $20 off your first purchase. By the way, it's not just for college basketball games, any concerts, any shows, football, college baseball is starting. If they sell tickets on SeatGeek, you use promo code Torres, you get $20 off your first purchase. I should mention, don't tell anybody, if you've used SeatGeek before, download the app, use a different email address, you can still use promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, SeatGeek app, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. All right. Wednesday night a little bit quiet in the world of college hoops. Let's get to some news and notes. The first one, this just came across our desk here in about the last 10 minutes before we went on air. I think it's that time of year where there's no NFL to fall back to. So people are just saying crazy stuff to try to get headlines. You know, I call it Paul Feinbaum syndrome. I swear in the summer, it's like July. They call Paul Feinbaum. They're like, we just need you to say something crazy. Oh, Arch Manning is going to be the best player since Tim Tebow. Oh, Deion Sanders should be the next head coach of the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL. Like, what? They just bring in Feinbaum. I say he's got a little dartboard with coaches and schools, and he just throws a dart. And he says, okay, today I'm talking Lincoln Riley as the Florida head coach. Boom, go. Well, I bring it up because we are now in the basketball version of that. And we got an interesting quote from Jay Williams here earlier in the day. So Jay Williams played in the NBA. I'll defend Jay Williams. One, he might be one of the best college basketball players I've ever seen. Got in a motorcycle accident. The NBA career didn't work out. But I only bring it up because he's gone into the media, and he was like this college basketball analyst that for a couple of years was always crapping on college basketball. And it was kind of like that era of like woke, the NCAA is terrible, blame the NCAA for everything, college sucks, all these guys should go pro. Then he covered the NBA for a few years. Now he's back in college basketball, And I actually think he's doing a pretty like fair job celebrate rather than trashing college basketball every chance he gets. He's actually celebrating it. Well, I bring it up because he was apparently on, I want to say, First Take earlier in the day. And he gave a little bit of a spicy meatball of a quote. Apparently it was on Get Up. All those shows are the same. Whatever. One has Mike Greenberg, one has Stephen A. They both have Jay Williams from time to time. So on Get Up with Mike Greenberg, not Seth Greenberg, Jay Williams was talking about the state of basketball. And he said, quote, I got to pull it up here, actually. Oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. So here is the quote. The college basketball product is better than the NBA product right now. Each night in college hoops, you're having top 15 matchups, and the best players are actually playing in games and competing every single night. That via Jay Williams, that via Get Up. And goodness gracious, I can't wait to read the comments from NBA Twitter, who anytime you criticize the NBA, even though the ratings are tanking, the All-Star weekend is a disaster, I don't know what else there is to say other than that. Listen, no one will argue that the talent level in the NBA is better. But is the product better? I actually don't think there's any question. I'm on Team Jay Williams on this one. I'm going to rub his little bald head right here. There, I love Jay Williams. Look, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm rubbing his little bald head right there. Jay Williams, good take by you. Listen, let's dive into this for half a second. First of all, I'll say this. It's All-Star Weekend this weekend. I think you can argue All-Star Weekend, this is legitimately the least hype that we have ever seen for All-Star Weekend, and it's because there's no hype for the NBA at all. Listen, this isn't a bash the NBA segment, but it's kind of a bash the NBA segment, okay? First of all, I don't watch the NBA, but I think, listen, I'll say this, and this whole segment's off the top of my head, so forgive me, but the problem, because I host Fox Sports Radio, so we talk NBA. The problems that are facing the NBA right now, I was calling out 6, 7, 8 years ago. I remember in like the 2014, 2015, 2016 era when everybody loved the NBA. And, Adam Silver's the greatest commissioner in the history of sports. And I would be like, why? Like, what has he actually done? And when you look at the NBA right now, it just feels like it's one crisis after another. Ratings are down. The All-Star game is so bad. We might have to talk about, well, we won't because we'll do a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon show before the All-Star game. The All-Star game's unwatchable. I remember last year I was in Utah for the BYU-Kansas game trying to watch the All-Star game, and you couldn't follow it, and it's so weird. Players don't care about the All-Star game. Players don't compete in the NBA. Guys take time off. We don't have to get into all the stats, but load management is a real thing. You got guys demanding. The NBA product, I just think, is so toxic right now. James Harden, the Clippers are playing as well as anybody in the NBA, and James Harden is demanding trade right in the middle of a run. So you have that. You have the tanking issue now, which is apparently a huge issue. I don't know enough about it. I haven't looked into it. But then there's also college basketball. And Matt, pop up the picture again of Jay Williams or the picture of the tweet, because he did say something interesting here. He said the college basketball product right now is better than the NBA. Each night in college basketball, you're having top 15 matchup. The best players are actually playing and competing every night. So I think there's absolutely something to that. And it was interesting because, listen, I think the guys play every night is certainly a conversation around Darryn Peterson. We'll get to that in a minute. But at the same time, I do think it's true. Like, I'll tell you a quick side story. So Monday night, we had the Arizona-Kansas game. I actually looked to see if there had been a TV rating that came out surrounding that game yet. In other words, was there any, has the TV rating come out yet? I had so many random people texting me and DMing me like, are you watching this game? This is a great game. This game's awesome. The atmosphere is awesome. The vibes are awesome. The players are playing hard. My sister-in-law, who loves basketball, I say all the time, my wife and my sister-in-law grew up on the Shaq Kobe Lakers here in LA. They love basketball, but they don't watch the basketball anymore because the NBA product is terrible. Well, I just bring it up because she texted us during the game the other night, the Arizona-Kansas game, and she goes, are you guys watching this game? She goes, this game is unbelievable. And so I just bring it up to very simply say that the product in college basketball, I truly believe, has never been better. I think the best players are on the best teams. We're creating interesting games. Now, listen, I got to give credit where it's due. I think ESPN has done a really good job of, you look at the schedule, you look at Duke, Carolina one day, leading into Kentucky, Tennessee, leading into BYU, Houston. I think the Big 12 specifically spreading out all these games where it's like every single night, Kansas versus Arizona, Kansas versus BYU, BYU versus Arizona, BYU versus Houston. And that's only going to continue. Iowa State, Kansas this Saturday. By the way, I think it's next Monday, maybe we get Houston, Iowa State. I know Houston, Iowa State is next week. Arizona, Texas Tech next week. I mean, you just go on and on and on down the list. It is absolutely unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable the quality of competition that you see on a night in, night out basis. I think it's only going to get better. Listen, I feel like college hoops has never been hotter. Now, part of it is the freshman class is just so unbelievable. And listen, next year, respectfully, you're not going to have Caleb Wilson. You're not going to have Cam Boozer. You will still have very good players, including Jordan Smith Jr., who people are talking about nonstop right now in the chat. But I don't think it's going to be quite like this. And so I'll say this for Jay Williams. I think that there is, in my opinion, I know NBA people are going to say that's a terrible take. I know college basketball people are going to say it's a great take. But you look across the board, and I think lastly, the other thing, and again, I'm doing this whole segment off the top of my head of like, I think the other thing too is the portal has allowed the top part of college basketball to be better than it ever is. Jaxa Lendenberg would either be at UAB or in the NBA if it wasn't for the portal. AJ DeBonsa would be at BYU, but they wouldn't have been able to build the team around him that they did. Arizona, you go on and on. Now, what would Kansas be without Melvin Council right now, without Trey White, without some of the guys they brought in? So it has allowed the top of the sport to be better. And when the top of the sport is better, then you have better games across the board. And so I give college basketball credit. Like I said, NBA people go, oh, the NBA is blah, 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 blah. The NBA is awful. The NBA is largely unwatchable. The best players don't play. Best players are demanding trades. All-Star weekend's a disaster. LeBron should have retired 3 years ago, but he's still playing. Whatever. College basketball is on fire right now. Like I said, every night it's a great opponent, a great game. And as Jay Williams said, the college basketball product better than the NBA right now. Each night in college hoops, you've got a top 15 matchup, and the best players are playing in actual games and competing every single night. Really quickly, on that note, let's switch gears to our buddy Darryn Peterson. Okay, so Darryn Peterson, listen, I don't want to say that I started a discourse on social media, but it felt like my tweet on Darryn Peterson on Monday night went more viral than anybody else. Okay, and I'm not trying to take too much credit here, but the Darryn Peterson story is absolutely fascinating. Probably the best talent in college basketball. We just don't know if he likes to play. We just don't know if he likes to play at this point. I think what's more concerning, if you're an NBA fan or if you're somebody who wants to watch his career progress, kind of feels like he ducks big competition, right? Didn't play against UConn. Didn't play against Duke. We defended him on the show at that time, basically saying like, you know what? Like, we're going to give him a pass. He probably has a hamstring. He probably has cramps. You don't want to rush back. There's no reason to. But then you get into Big 12 play. Then there's the BYU game. You play really well in the first half. You sit out in the second half. Your team's blowing a lead. You don't care. You're sitting there on the sidelines, whatever. And then minutes before the Arizona game, you decide you're just not playing at all. Number one team in the country, national stage. Kansas wins without him. Well, I bring it up. This doesn't have to be another Darryn Peterson discourse, but Joe Tipton from On3 put out an interesting article on Wednesday, kind of talking about this narrative and talking about this conversation. And what has become interesting about the narrative and about the conversation is the idea that basically, according to Joe Tipton, schools are now having second thoughts about recruiting a player like Darryn Peterson, a star freshman, a star one and done. Now, the article was behind a paywall, but he put out a quote on Twitter. We always respect people that put stuff behind paywalls. We don't share stuff from behind paywalls, but this was on Twitter via On3. Quote, Kansas star Darryn Peterson has college programs debating their spending after he just missed his 11th game. This is a direct quote, is one $3 million freshman worth more than three $1 million players who are fully bought in for the season? A college basketball GM asks Joe Tipton. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive into this quote because I think there's a lot of meat on the bone there. And the hypothetical is this: is paying $3 million for a can't-miss NBA future star like Darryn Peterson worth it, or is it worth getting three freshmen that are worth $1 million each? Well, what I will say is this: this is not a criticism of Joe Tipton and his reporting. I think the whole premise of the article is wrong, and I think basically I would argue it's much more of a Darryn Peterson problem than a freshman problem at all. Because if you look across college basketball, okay, and we don't know what every player is making, and if, I don't even know if Darryn Peterson's making $3 million. I don't know if DeBonsa is. I don't know if Coapete is, whatever. But if you look at college basketball right now, I would argue that essentially every other freshman except for Darryn Peterson has not only been worth the investment, I would argue that in some cases, teams might feel like they got a deal by bringing them in. Go across college basketball. Caleb Wilson. Let's just put the number at $3 million. If North Carolina paid $3 million for him, do you think it was worth it? Yeah, I think it was. Caleb Wilson is going to be first-team All-ACC. He might be a first-team All-American. He, most importantly, he will save Hubert Davis's job, right? And we don't have to do like a Hubert Davis segment now, but Carolina, I think even after the loss to Miami on Tuesday night, they're 17-5 overall. They're like 7-4, 8-4 in the ACC. They're not going to win the ACC regular season title, but they're going to be a 24, 25, 26 win team going into the NCAA tournament. They'll probably be a 3 or a 4 seed come the tournament. And they're a team that is going to have a chance to make a deep run, not explicitly because of Caleb Wilson, but in large part because of him. And let me ask a very simple question. If they had not gotten Caleb Wilson and they had gotten some average dude out of the portal, where would North Carolina be? And let me even ask you this. How many guys could they have even gotten out of the portal that would have been better than Caleb Wilson is this year? Is there a single player? Maybe one, maybe two. There aren't very many. By the way, AJ DeBonsa at BYU. I know BYU as a team is struggling, just broke a 4-game losing streak at Baylor the other night. But at the same time, what I would also say about BYU, Matt, can you see me? What I would also say about BYU is pretty straightforward. I think whatever they paid for AJ DeBonsa, I think it was a bargain. First of all, how many, again, high-profile games were they part of this year that they would not be without AJ DeBonsa? UConn in Boston, Clemson at Madison Square Garden. The Big 12 now features them. That big Saturday with DeBonsa versus Peterson. The big Monday game of DeBonsa versus the number 1 team in the country, Arizona. I would argue DeBonsa has done more. Listen, I haven't thought about this before right now. Could you argue DeBonsa has done more for the BYU brand than any person certainly in the history of the athletic department? But I mean, BYU is now an international sports brand. It's an international brand because of the church, but I would argue an international sports brand because of AJ DeBonsa. By the way, look across the board. Darius Acuff, whatever Arkansas paid him, you think he was worth the money? Yeah, I think he probably was. Nate Amen at Tennessee. It took a minute. Is he worth the money? Well, he's their best player. They're a top 25 team with him. Where would they be without him? Would they even be a tournament team if he hadn't taken the steps that he had? Kingston Flemings and Chris Sinak Jr. Don't know how much they're getting, but I'll tell you what, they're the reason that Houston is a top 5 team that is good enough to win the national championship. Arizona fans always get mad at me because I leave out Braden Burries and Coapete. Don't know what they're paid, but I guarantee you the return on the investment of Arizona being number one in the country, a 23-0 start, probably the number one seed in the West, I would say is probably worth it for Arizona. Not to mention, Arizona actually has 4 freshmen that play significant minutes. Ivan Karchenkov is awesome, one of the best defensive players in college basketball, and I think Dwayne Aristotle is going to get there eventually. Whatever Arizona paid, I think it was worth it for Arizona. You could go on and on down the list. So to me, it's not you can't pay that much money for these guys thing. I think it's explicitly a Darryn Peterson thing, and I think that's no different than anything else in recruiting, right? Is you have to evaluate not only, player fit, but also character fit, the people around them, and is that player going to give it their all for your school? And so I don't think it's a Darryn Peterson thing. I think it's just trying to figure out, recruiting thing. And it's no different in the portal, and it's no different in high school. And I'll tell you this, I actually think what's an interesting part of the conversation, the direct quote was, do you pay $3 million for Darryn Peterson or do you pay $1 million for 3 portal guys? Well, one, you can't find very many Darryn Petersons or Darius Acuffs or Braden Burries or AJ DeBonsas in the portal. But 2, what's actually a really big thing that not a lot of people talk about is that a lot of these players now at the low and mid-major levels, because you want to play the portal game, okay. Well, here's the thing. A lot of these players at the low and mid-major levels, when their team's struggling, you know what they do? The same thing as Darryn Peterson. I would argue it's a much bigger issue in college basketball right now of players at the low major level that know that they're going to the high major level, either faking injuries or nursing injuries or taking their time coming back because they know I have $1 million payday, a $2 million payday when I enter the portal this offseason. I've had probably easily 3 to 4 assistant coaches, ADs, head coaches at the low and high major level, at the low and mid-major level, say, Torres, this is a disaster. We can't get this kid to practice. We can't get this kid to play. I will tell you, I had one administrator actually reach out to me trying to set up an NIL deal because they got to funnel some money to one of their best players to keep him at school for another year. So I just bring it up because, it's a great conversation, but this notion that you're going to stop recruiting these guys, now maybe you don't pay them $3 million, but I think that's dictated by the market. You get the opportunity to recruit a Darryn Peterson, an AJ DeBonsa, a Caleb Wilson, you pay what you have to pay. I think it's also interesting and worth noting that most of the high school players in this year's class, which is nowhere near as good, aren't getting anywhere the money that these other guys are. So it's an interesting story. Joe Tipton saying that some schools would rather pay $1 million a piece for 3 portal guys than 1 Darryn Peterson. I think it is a case-by-case basis. I'll tell you what. Let's skip the other 2 things, Matt. We had some funny Mick Cronin sound. We had an interesting Syracuse story. We got to get to previewing this weekend, and then we got to get to also Bryson Tiller. Listen, I have my opinions on Darryn Peterson, but one thing I will say, the rest of the guys at Kansas are stepping up. Bryson Tiller, Kansas star, will join us in about 15 minutes, but we're going to come back. We will preview Kentucky, Florida, the marquee game of the weekend. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. It's not the final segment of the show, but it is so good to be back. Lot going on in the chat right now. A lot of people, certainly a lot of strong opinions being thrown around. I think the good news from my perspective is there's a lot of argument over who's going to mess around and win the SEC this year in basketball. Well, why do I bring it up? It is because we got to talk about the big game in the SEC this weekend, because we could have, in theory, a three-way tie atop the SEC standings by the end of the weekend. Kentucky going to Florida on Saturday. Florida alone in first place at 9-2 in the league. Kentucky is sitting at 8-3. Arkansas is 8-3 as well. And so if Kentucky were to beat if Kentucky were to beat Florida and Arkansas were to beat Auburn at home, you would have a three-way tie atop the SEC standings. Now, it's also worth noting, if Florida beats Kentucky and if Arkansas loses to Auburn, then all of a sudden, you have like a 9-way tie in second place, but Florida would have a 2-game lead in the SEC standings. So let's go ahead and break this game down. This is the game of the weekend. Listen, there's 4 top 20 matchups, 2 of them in the Big 12, Texas Tech at Arizona, Kansas at Iowa State. We'll have Bryson Tiller on in a minute to talk about that one. Also Duke Clemson. But this to me is the headlining game, and this to me, 2 of the best stories in college basketball. We talk so much about Kentucky winning 9 of its last 10. Florida has quietly won 9 of its last 10 as well, winning those games by an average of 20 points. They're absolutely awesome. There is no line yet, by the way, from the Circa Sportsbook. This is a 3 p.m. Eastern start time in the O-Dome. By the way, if you need last-minute tickets, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, get you $20 off. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. As far as the game is concerned, listen, let's open with Florida, because we've spent so much time talking about Kentucky. We probably haven't spent enough time crediting the Florida Gators, because early in the season there were struggles, but 2 things. One, Florida is very clearly improved, and I keep saying it with the Gators. Their losses all of a sudden look a lot different in mid to late February than they did in December. An opening at night loss by 6 to Arizona in Vegas does not look bad in hindsight. A 1-point loss to Duke does not look bad in hindsight. A 4-point loss to UConn does not look bad in hindsight. And so maybe if Florida had just scheduled easier and they're 23-2 overall, maybe we look at them different. It does not matter, but those wins have held up well. As far as what's different with this Florida team, I think a few things. One, they are just so monstrous on the glass. And it's funny to me because when Todd Golden got to Florida, he was kind of known as a young, analytics, new age. He has all these, whatever. You know how Florida is beating teams? It's old school, beat the crap out of you down low. It's old school Bobby Knight and Bob Huggins and defense and physicality and toughness. This is like, 1960s Big Ten football. It's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but I mean, it is like buckle up your chin strap and be ready to play. Here are the stats on Florida. Florida, the number 1 team in terms of rebound percentage. In other words, of all the rebounds that go up, they grab more of them than anyone in college basketball. They are the number 1 offensive rebounding team in college basketball. They have the number 1 rebounding margin in college basketball. In other words, they average more rebounds per game relative to their opponents than everybody else. And so they are big. They are tough. Ruben Chinyelu is one of the breakout stars in college basketball, 3rd in the country in rebounding, coming off of a 7-point 20 rebound performance on Wednesday night against the Georgia Bulldogs. And so I just bring it up because, by the way, he is now tied for the national lead with that 20 rebound performance. If you do not, again, to use a bad football cliche, buckle up your chin strap going into that game, it is going to be ugly. But it's also worth noting, in addition to the front court, should obviously mention Tommy Hawk playing like an all-SEC, potential SEC player of the year type player, Alex Condon, etc. In addition to those guys, we got to give credit to the guards. And listen, are the guards ever going to be what we thought they were going to be necessarily when they were in the portal and when they committed? Probably not. Listen, I had Boogie Fland as a top 1 or 2 guard in the portal last offseason. He hasn't been great, but to his credit, he has been much better over the last probably, during this stretch, frankly, where Florida is playing better. 9 wins in 10 games. Boogie Fland has scored double figures in 6 of those games. And I think as importantly, 2 or fewer turnovers in 9 of those 10 games. He's playing better. Xavier Lee is what he is. Irvin Klavchar comes off the bench. I told my buddy who's a Florida fan a few weeks ago, I go, dude, that guy right there, he's not the best player they have, but he might be the most important player. He comes in and all that dude does is drill threes. So, Irvin Klavchar, Florida Gators, Tommy Hawk, Ruben Chinyelu, that's what you need to know. From the Kentucky perspective, man, obviously having a week off, it gives you time to really think about things. And I would add this too. I do think that Cameron Mills, we had him on the show yesterday. If you missed that interview, we've clipped it off. Great interview with Cam Mills. A lot of great feedback on that one. But I just bring it up because with Cameron Mills, we talked about a lot of different things. But the thing that stands out to me about the Cameron Mills conversation is that you certainly listen. You never want to lose star players to injury, right? You just don't. You just don't want to lose star players to injury. We get it. But I do think it has created clarity for everyone in Kentucky basketball. It's created clarity not only for the players, I think as importantly for Mark Pope. I think Mark Pope, listen, this isn't a tear down Mark Pope segment, but he recruits 13 guys. He wants to play all of them. You can't play all of them. And I'm not saying you can't, but at this level, with this much money involved, with this many guys that want to go to the NBA, it's just hard to find playing time for all of those guys. So now, Jaden Quayon, so I see a lot of conversation in the chat. We'll see if he comes back. I don't know. But he's out. Jalen Lowe certainly out for the year. Cam Williams is essentially out for the year. And what it's done is create clarity. Otega Oweh, you got to get us 20 points a night every night. Denzel Aberdeen, former Florida Gator, you're the point guard. You didn't come here to be a starting point guard. You didn't come here to get others involved, but you are now the starting point guard. We need you to do that and run the offense. Colin Chandler, you got to bang in some threes, dude. You gotta get us 2 or 3 threes a game, or we're not gonna win. You go on down the list. Mo Diabate, we need energy, we need effort, we need rebounding. Brandon Garrison, we need energy, we need effort, we need rebounding. Malachi Moreno, you're our starting center. Go to work. And so it has created clarity for everyone in that program, and it's created clarity for the coaching staff as well. Now, as far as the game on Saturday is concerned, I'll say this. We don't have a point spread yet from Circa. I'm gonna put it at Florida as a 7.5 point favorite, an 8.5 point favorite. I think Florida wins, and I think it's a really, really tough matchup for Kentucky. And I think it's just a tough matchup for Kentucky because if you talked about what are Kentucky's strengths, probably the perimeter, probably guard play, probably shooting, okay? Well, I don't think you would argue that the interior is Kentucky's strength. As a matter of fact, this stat kind of blew me away. They were actually out-rebounded by 15 against Tennessee the last time they took the court at Rupp Arena. Now, you can argue, who cares? You beat Tennessee, and Tennessee is a great rebounding team in their own right. Well, I would counter that by saying if you expect to get out-rebounded by 15, which they did the last time you took the court, I just think it's a really, really, really tough spot to ask a team to be out-rebounded by 15 and find a way to win, and then to do it again against the only team in the country that's a better rebounding team than Tennessee, which is the Florida Gators. And so for Kentucky, for them to win this game, because Florida will be favored, they're at home. For Kentucky to win this game, I think there's 3 things. One, you cannot fall behind by 15 points. I know They're the comeback cats, and it's a great story, and they have a million comeback wins. And I think against 90% of college basketball, for them to fall behind by 10, 12, 15 points is not that big of a deal. I'd counter it by saying I think Florida is one of those teams you cannot fall behind. I think you have to shoot the three ball well. Now, Kentucky in a general vacuum is a pretty good three-point shooting team. They did not shoot it great. Ironically, they didn't shoot it great against Tennessee and still won. Again, I go back to that Tennessee game. You're out-rebounded by 15, and then on top of it, you shoot as a team 5 of 19 from 3. I'm still not totally sure how they won that game. Doesn't really matter. They got the win. You need to shoot the three ball well. I would say 8, 9, 10 threes in this game to stay close, because you're not going to get offensive rebounds. You're not going to get second chance points. You're not going to get points in the paint, and that's how you got to do it. And so I think you need to hit threes. You can't fall behind, and you got to be tough in the paint. They're the best rebounding team in the country. But Mo Diabate, bring your hard hat. Brandon Garrison, bring your hard hat, whatever. I just don't know if they can do it for 40 minutes. And even if they do, is it enough? So I'm going to go ahead and make my official pick for this game. I will say Kentucky and Florida. I got to go Florida. Florida, I don't know if I said this. 9 of 10, they've won by an average of over 20 points per game. I don't think it's that bad, but I will take the Florida Gators 81-75. Florida Gators get the win. And the Florida Gators will have at least a 1-game lead on everybody in the SEC going into next week. Arkansas, of course, again, tied with Kentucky in second place right now. So I have Florida winning. A couple other games, we'll be super quick on these. Texas Tech at Arizona. I think Arizona gets the bounce back. I don't have a ton of takes on this, but Arizona's been off 6, 7 days at this point. They play a Texas Tech team, which is really good. Texas Tech has kind of had this weird schedule where they've been off the radar since that big Monday loss to Kansas. They beat West Virginia. They beat Colorado at home by 34 the other night. And I will say, that shooting around, why am I blanking on his name? JT Toppin is really coming into form. And I will say this. This will be a very interesting cultural clash. Arizona, we know, does not take a lot of threes, right? Everything is in the paint. Everything is at the rim. Texas Tech shoots as many threes as essentially anybody in college basketball. Just the other night against Colorado, they shot 30 threes in a game. It was exactly half of their field goal attempts. And so I think that'll be an interesting cultural clash. And I think what's interesting, too, is we've seen this a few times the last couple of years. Texas Tech, they can get crazy hot from 3 and jump out to a big lead, and then it's just, can they sustain it? So, if you're an Arizona fan, if Texas Tech goes 8 for its first 11 from 3, you cannot, and I'm just using that as a hypothetical number, you cannot sit there and say, it's over. You just have to keep battling. You have to keep defending, and we'll see what happens from there. 2 other top 25 matchups, Duke and Clemson, whatever. I think Duke wins at home. By the way, UCLA at Michigan. Matt, maybe this is a good time to play the Mick Cronin sound. So UCLA, it's not a ranked-on-ranked matchup, but it is a CBS game. And UCLA is making the East Coast trek to play Michigan and Michigan State. 2 really tough teams. And I don't even know how this came up. Mick Cronin was talking about his respect for Tom Izzo for whatever. But as they get set to play Michigan, a tough physical team that also, by the way, has a Di Mara who played at UCLA. Mick Cronin was asked about how he plans to supplement it and what he plans to do in recruiting. Here is what Mick Cronin wants to do in recruiting this offseason.
Big Ten, buddy. I told Yogi, all these agents are in town. I guess it's the All-Star games here. Yeah. I'm oblivious, more concerned with can I take the Bookster out for a walk today? Hopefully it's not raining. He hates when he doesn't get a walk. But I know I'm dead serious though. His happiness is, it's way up there on my care list. Get me find me the biggest, nastiest vodka drinking Eastern European you can. That's what I tell Yogi. He's meeting all these agents from all over the world are coming in, I guess. Mm-hmm. Just find some guy that Used to like wrestle bears in Lithuania or something. The Big Ten is no joke, buddy.
Yeah.
Everybody's big.
Yeah.
Everybody's strong.
Yeah.
I mean, almost. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mick Cronin asked how he plans to supplement against the physicality of Michigan and Michigan State, told his assistant coach, go find me the biggest vodka-drinking Eastern European that used to wrestle bears that you can find. Of course, All-Star Weekend is again in L.A. UCLA will be away. I assume Yogi is probably UCLA's equivalent of a GM or whatever. But yeah, that was Mick Cronin as they head into Michigan. So Michigan, UCLA, a big game. Florida and Kentucky, a big game. Arizona and Texas Tech as well. Is one other top 25 matchup. Iowa State hosting Kansas. Remember, part of the Kansas winning streak that they're currently on began with a big Monday win against, or I don't think it was a big Monday. I think it was a Tuesday game against Iowa. Iowa State, excuse me. Well, I only bring it up because rather than me previewing it, let's do something fun. So Bryson Tiller has become, I think, a breakout star for the Kansas Jayhawks. 6'11", step out, shoot threes, does a lot of different things. Well, I bring it up because Bryson Tiller is about to join the Aaron Torres pod. We had a chance to talk to him earlier this week. It was after the Arizona game, but kind of also previewing this game ahead. Bryson Tiller, 18 points against Arizona, 21 in the win the other day against BYU, which got him the CBS Sports Freshman of the Week honors. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. When we do, we will welcome in Bryson Tiller, and I should mention that will be the end of this show. That will be the end of this week of shows. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, as well as YouTube. Thank you to everybody for getting us to over 70,000 subscribers. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Also tell a friend. Also, thank you to our partners. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. CawleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off your total purchase. And oh, by the way, thank you to Circa Sportsbook. That's all. We might come back tomorrow after the Jordan Smith commitment. That remains to be seen. And then also, we'll be back on Sunday, still debating if we do the normal morning show or if we flip it over to the evening. That remains to be seen. Quick break, come back, Bryson Tiller. Meantime, I am getting out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Redick, you F-head. Unblock me, JJ. Quick break, come back, Bryson Tiller, Kansas basketball star. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cawley Puffs and CawleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cawley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cawley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cawley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CawleyPuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, CawleyPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. One bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CawleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cawley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CawleyPuffs.com, CawleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cawley Puffs. Joining me via Zoom, an absolute pleasure. A guy who played a very big role in what was maybe the best college basketball game of the season Monday night. Kansas star Bryson Tiller, fresh off the win over number one Arizona. First ever win for Kansas at Fall Gallon against number one team in the country? First of all, did that stat surprise you as much as me that you guys had never beaten the number one ranked team in the country at Fall Gallon Fieldhouse?
It did. I didn't know that. I know Kansas has a great, is a rich history program, so definitely was surprised by that, and it just gave us a little extra motivation to get that win last night.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for you guys is you guys are usually the ones that are ranked number one going into those games. So awesome game. First of all, let me even ask you this. So, I talked about the game on my show Tuesday morning, and what I thought was so impressive is obviously you guys were a little bit shorthanded coming in, and it felt like at a different moment in time, a different guy stepped up. Sometimes it was Flory, sometimes it was Melvin, but certainly to start the game, it was you. Once you find out that you guys are going to be shorthanded and injuries happen and the flu bug happens and this and that, did you just take it upon yourself, or was that just, you were just ready to play? It just felt like from moment one, as much as any guy on the court, you were locked in, ready to go. 14 first half points, 18 overall, I believe. And like I said, it just felt like it felt like watching on TV that you took it upon yourself right from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, I just go into every game like that with that aggressive mindset. Always looking to score, get my teammates involved, and overall just trusting in my abilities. I put in the work every day, so there's no reason to go out there and shy away from any big moment.
Let me ask you this. You talk about your abilities. You talk about believing in yourself. Talk about your skill set, man. I mean, you're 6'10", 6'11", can shoot the crap out of the ball. You got the mid-post game, bank shots, pass the ball. Like where did this game come from? And I apologize if I don't know enough about your background, but you got the guard skills, the shooting touch. Were you always somebody that had the ability to do both? Did you hit a growth spurt? Because I'm blown away watching you more and more with the number of different ways, as not just on Monday night, but just across the board, how you can beat your opponent.
I mean, I've been working on my game for several years now. I've always had a guard-like skill set. I was always tall as well, so I didn't really hit a specific growth spurt or anything like that. But no, it just comes from working on my game every day from a young age. And again, just trusting in my abilities. I feel like when the lights are bright, that's when I shine the brightest. So, I mean, again, just going in every game with that aggressive mindset, and I feel like that helped us get the win last night.
I know your dad played in the NFL. Is there anything there about having that quote unquote pro mindset? I also know you went to OTE very young in your career, but is that anything that was passed down from your dad about showing up every day ready to work? I know it's kind of cliche to say in this NIL era, it's a job more than it's ever been before, but it feels like you said, you show up every day ready to go. Is that something that your dad passed down being around pro sports? Do you think that had an impact on you growing up?
For sure, he definitely passed that mindset down. Just being able to wake up every day with the purpose that we have, and just that professional mentality, just to go in, not take any days for granted. And I feel like that's kind of helped me throughout my years of playing basketball and in life in general. So definitely a good mindset to have.
I mentioned OTE. You were one of the youngest players, if not the youngest player to ever enroll there, multiple years there. How did that whole experience kind of prepare you for Kansas and whatever's next in your basketball career?
It was great, just being able to play with other great players and knowing how to impact the game in ways outside of even scoring is what kind of elevated my game. I feel like playing with guys like the Thompson twins and many other pro players definitely kind of taught me how to play the game in multiple facets on offense and defense. So I feel like that definitely propelled me in the right direction.
What about enrolling early? Let me ask you this. How did whose idea was it to come to Kansas a semester early? For people who don't know, you took, the red shirt last year. Not many guys your age are willing to red shirt these days. What went into that decision? Was it your decision, your family's decision, Coach Self's decision? And then I would imagine practicing against Hunter Dickinson every day, Flory every day, guys like that, probably didn't hurt in this process, in this journey as well.
Definitely a complicated kind of story. So
If you don't mind sharing, I hope it's nothing bad.
Yeah, for sure. I fractured my ankle my junior year of high school at the junior year summer. So I wasn't able to play for my senior year. So we decided to come to Kansas early. It was a family decision. We decided to come up here, hopefully being able to practice, but unfortunately I wasn't. So I had to get a surgery. and then just kind of working my way back, doing rehab every day. Those early mornings and all that stuff, I definitely don't forget. But it was a long process, but much love to the trainers and the staff who helped me out, and my family for continuing to push me and support me. And eventually, I just got back on the court in July. Started practicing with the team. I actually came a little late, so had to kind of work my way up in the system and all that stuff. But yeah, just a lot of work that was put into this, and yeah.
Well, now I know why it feels like you get better every time I watch you. I mean, if you were out for 18 months or whatever, do you feel like personally that you are just starting to scratch the surface of your potential after that extended time off because of the injury?
For sure. And I was putting in work even when I was injured and I didn't know I couldn't play. But yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like I'm scratching the surface of my potential. I feel like I have a lot more to show and a lot more ways to improve. So definitely looking forward to playing more games.
What were you able to do while you were rehabbing the ankle?
It was crazy. I actually had videos of me doing chair workouts. I was on a chair shooting the ball, working on my shot, stationary ball handling, all the little stuff. But I feel like that kind of prepared me to rise up to the big stage.
All right, let's go back to Monday night. You guys get an unbelievable win. Let me ask you this. So I'm a fan of college basketball more than anything else. I have been to Fog Allen Fieldhouse one time and one time only, and I always tell anybody, if you haven't been, and certainly if you can afford to, and I never tell anybody how to spend their money, but you got to get to a game there. Fran Fraschilla said it after the game. For people who have never been there, take us inside. But then last night, Monday night specifically, it felt like that place was maybe even on another level.
For sure. The best game I've ever been a part of, without a doubt. I mean, I love playing in there. There's 15,000 plus people every night screaming. I'm pretty sure it's like the loudest indoor arena. So, that's an amazing stat to have. But you just go out there, run out the tunnel experience, and embrace all the people that support you. And it's a place like no other. I really mean it when I say that. So it definitely helped us get that win last night.
And Coach Self talked about exactly what you just said, the impact of the crowd on the win. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there were moments where we were down, they were cheering their hearts out. So the crowd really helps us get momentum in the game, and I feel like not a lot of places in college basketball are able to do that. So big shout out to the fans.
What about Coach Self himself? I've said just because of the injuries and stuff going on with your team, it feels like every night, he's coaching a slightly different team just because of injuries and illness and whatever. What makes him so unique? You've obviously played for a lot of great coaches throughout your career, but having had a chance now, 18 months or whatever it is, or I guess it'd be about a year since you enrolled, but getting to know him, but then being in the trenches with him in these big moments, like what separates him from all these other guys that have done it? Because I looked it up. I think it's 836 wins and counting last time I checked. So,
yeah, it all comes down to experience. He's played.
on him old, that's what you're telling me.
For sure, he's coached in the most hostile environments in the biggest games. So he has a lot of experience and a very good mind, a very good head on his shoulders. So he knows what he's doing. We all trust in him. He trusts in us, and I feel like that's what allows this team to get big wins.
What about some of the other First of all, Flory, best game that I've personally ever seen him play. Another guy that I would assume you probably get better by practicing against him every day. I know you guys probably run the first team a lot together, but the impact that he had last night, but then just in general, he's another guy that I feel like every time I watch, he's getting better.
For sure. He's, in my opinion, the best center in the country. I feel like he always has my back and always have his back when we're playing. So I really enjoy playing with him. He's a phenomenal lob threat, a great defensive player on all 5 positions. It's just great going out, being able to compete against him and with him in practice every day. I feel like that makes us stronger for sure, and it just carries on to the court.
And then how about Melvin Council Jr.? They talked about it during the broadcast, and I don't know if you can verify this story or not, but basically they said, he kind of got to campus. He had been a lot of different places, whatever. And he basically saw that there was a lot of talent, but maybe a little bit of a leadership void. Somebody needed to step up. Have you noticed that kind of the impact that he has as the older guy in the locker room?
Yeah, he brings a lot of energy every day. Always has a smile on his face, and he loves Kansas. So um, definitely a guy that we can lean on in spurts, and just a guy that always is going to bring the energy, always going to have his teammates back. So definitely love playing with him.
The only other couple last questions I have for you. First of all, life in the Big 12, congrats on being number one team in the country. Now you got to go on the road and play Iowa State, excuse me, is somewhere 6-7-5, somewhere in that range in the country. What is it like for you night in and night out in the Big 12? I mean, on the one hand, best competition, but on the other, I assume it's making you better as well. But just big picture, playing in this league, because I can say I watch all these games, all these teams. There's nothing like the Big 12 on a night in, night out basis.
For sure. I feel like it's obviously the strongest conference in basketball right now. And every game is going to be tough. It's going to be a battle. So we just got to really come in with an aggressive mindset, offensively and defensively. Um, and individual players have to be aggressive as well. I feel like we have a lot of stars on our team, a lot of guys who can go get a bucket and get a stop as well. So if we put that together with knowing the scouting report and following our principles, we'll be good.
I know this is about you and about Kansas, but kind of curious. You guys have now played basically all the big ones in the Big 12, except for Houston. But is there one player that stands out as far as, and it's not to disparage anybody else or say this guy stinks or whatever, but you play JT Toppin, Koa, Toby Awaka was going crazy the other night. Is there one player that you guys have played against? You're like, man, that guy is a freaking load or a monster. Anybody stand out through your first run in the Big 12?
There's a lot of great players in this league.
Yeah,
To be honest, I don't really have one that comes to mind, but obviously much respect to all those guys. They put in the work to be where they are. So, but I feel like again we have a really strong team. We have really good principles and a really defensive sound team. So I feel like if we go out there with that mindset every night, then there won't be many teams that can stop us.
Yeah, and that was going to be my last question. You guys are riding a wave. I believe it's 8 straight. Like I said, you've beaten basically everybody there is to beat. Iowa State for the first time, BYU, Arizona. You'll be playing some of these guys on the back end as well. But just what do you take out of the first half of the Big 12? But then really as we hit that home stretch and it's not getting any easier, what do you guys got to do to keep these guys going? Because you guys are maybe the hottest team in all of college basketball right now.
Yeah, I mean, just keeping the same mindset, staying sound but confident at the same time, and staying aggressive. I feel like we have a very talented team, offensively and defensively. We can guard all positions, so just staying grounded and taking one game at a time. I feel like you can't look past any opponent on our schedule, so just carrying that mindset over will definitely be good for us.
All right, Bryson Tiller, star Kansas basketball. By the way, I'm told that you have some very good. You've got unique taste in music for someone your age. What's on? I don't even know. Nobody uses an iPod anymore. But what's on the iPhone right now? What's your get right music before a game?
It's pretty funny, but I listen to a lot of soul music and R&B.
Okay.
So I listen to Marvin Gaye before every game.
Okay.
Gets me in the right mood and it propels me to do what I do on the court. So Marvin Gaye is out there for sure.
How long has that tradition been going on for?
Since the first game in Allen Fieldhouse.
Oh, okay, just Allen Fieldhouse. I didn't know if this was like a.
No, it's every game, but I started in our first game in Allen Fieldhouse, so it's been probably like a 20 or so game streak now. So I keep it going.
And where did you first learn about Marvin Gaye? Was it a grandparent, a parent, driving around in the car on the radio?
I feel like it was from my parents. I can't remember the exact time, but my parents have a lot of great taste in music, so I had to get it for them for sure.
Oh, they like the same stuff as you, so they have great taste, of course, naturally. So,
Sure.
all right, Bryson Tiller, best of luck this weekend. Iowa State coming up. Return game at Arizona. Cross your fingers. I might actually be at that one. I'm very excited. I've been to Tucson many times. That'll be a great return game. Houston coming up. No rest for the weary in the Big 12, but get some rest, man, because you left it all on the court on Monday night. We appreciate the time, and I hope to do this again.